With me, let's fly away. If you can use some exotic booze at a bar in far Bombay. Wait a minute, I sang this last week. Okay, we need something else. Okay, I know what I'll do. Angel eyes, the old devil scent. They glow unbearably bright. The old devil scent. Need I say that my love's misspent? Hello, folks. My name is Brian Trippett. On angel eyes tonight. So go ahead and drink up, all of you people. Okay, I think we've got it. All right, we're cooking. Okay, let's do this thing. Good morning, everybody out there in internet land. My name is Brian Trippett. I am your Front Porch Conservative, sometimes known as the beau in the chapeau, sometimes known as the fine fella in the fedora. Occasionally, I'm called the wise guy in the wide brim, and some names I cannot even begin to repeat. Welcome, as always, to Front Porch Brunch, a live stream that is dedicated to catching up on the news of the previous week while allowing you the simultaneous opportunity to unwind from your week's endeavors. And boy, what a week of endeavors you've had. You've been out there working, you've been out there trying to take care of the spouse or the significant other or the kids or satisfying the boss or paying the bills or driving around. You have had a week. You need to decompress. Hence, that's why we're here. We are here to help you unwind, but also give you the opportunity to catch up on the news, which, everybody wants to stay well informed of what's going on in the world. And boy, what a week of news we've had. Woo! Morsi, I got a whole string of tabs lined up across the top of this monitor of stuff that I want to talk about. And hopefully it's informative. Hopefully we're going to have some fun. I have a cup of tea in my hand. I have some water to back me up. And now, give me just 1 second, and I will put on some music. So, a little something in the background, kind of give us something to work with here. Okay, as always, if you're out there, please feel free to drop a comment in chat. We'd love to hear from you. My name is Brian Trippett. Again, I am known as the Front Porch Conservative. This is Saturday morning Front Porch Brunch. And again, we're going to be looking at some news items that have come up through this week. And, as I'm reviewing this line of tabs I've got over my computer, I feel like a mosquito in a nudist colony. I don't quite know where to start first. I mean, I know the order I'm going to go in, but man, there is so much to get into. My God, what a week. News and comments on it and everything else. So if you're out there, please feel free to leave a comment and chat. We'd love to hear from you. We're on YouTube, we're on Rumble, we're on Twitter right now, and we may be streaming over on Getter. I don't know yet. I got to check this out. As a matter of fact, I think I'll do that right now while I'm thinking about it. I know people are kind of still working their way into the room, so, I'm just curious to see what's happening here. See if under my... hang on. Can't look at it that way. Let's find another way to do this. Hang on. There are always alternatives. Always alternatives. Got to see what's going on here. Let's see what we got. Oh my goodness. I think it's going to let me do it. Maybe. Don't know. We'll see. Hang on. I'm hoping it's going to let me do it. Well, we'll see. We'll check it out later. Don't want to hold up what's going on right now. So, yeah. So if you're out there, please feel free to leave a comment and chat. We'd love to hear from you. I am not monetized on YouTube yet. However, Rumble has no objection with you whatsoever if you feel like you would like to drop some coin in the cup. You can contribute to my... What's going on here? Okay, there we go. If you're out there, please feel free to leave a comment and chat. Love to hear from you, as always. So... let's get into it. I said that I feel like a mosquito in a nudist colony this week, and I tell you what, man, there has been news all over the place. Everywhere you turn, something big is dropping big all day long, every day. It's been crazy. I mean, I was doing show prep this morning, and I was like pulling up all these different things I could talk about. I was like, oh my God. But I suppose we ought to start with the biggest one of the bunch. and it is the indictment of former President Donald J. Trump in Miami. Now, for those of you who may not know what is going on, let me give you a little bit of background on this. And this goes back probably a good year and a half. The National Archives apparently became aware that former President Trump was in possession of certain documents. And let's just say for the early part of 2022, they were in, negotiations to get them back. According to Trump and his lawyers, they were fully cooperating with the National Archive to get these things back, yada, yada, yada. And then in August of last year, a raid was done on President Trump's home in Mar-a-Lago, Florida, to try and get their hands on these documents, which made no sense to anyone at the time. Number one, it's unprecedented that you're doing a raid on the home of a former president. Number two, it's unprecedented in that the former president is cooperating with you, and you are you're raiding the guy's house, which makes no sense to anybody. But it went down, and at that point, people were starting to have problems. So Attorney General Merrick Garland appoints a special counsel to look into the whole matter. Well, the upshot of it is that last week, rounds about Thursday, it was announced that the president was now under indictment. So that's where we're going to start. This is from Truth Social. This is from Donald J. Trump's own Truth Social page. The corrupt Biden administration has informed my attorneys that I have been indicted, seemingly over the boxes hoax, even though Joe Biden had 1,850 boxes at the University of Delaware, additional boxes in Chinatown, D.C., with even more boxes at the University of Pennsylvania, and documents strewn all over his garage floor where he parks his Corvette, and which is, quote, secured by only a garage door that is paper thin and open much of the time. Well, as you might expect, that went viral in a hurry. Okay, that posted at like almost 7:30 Thursday night. And all day Friday, this is all everybody was talking about, which is totally understandable. This is the first time in American history that I am aware of that a former president of the United States has been indicted. Now, I agree with the proposition that no man or no woman is above the law. And if he is guilty of that which he is charged, okay, like anybody else in America, let him serve the punishment. I don't care if it's Donald J. Trump. I don't care if it's Hillary Clinton. I don't care who it is. Okay? But this set of circumstances is unique for another reason. It just so happens that this former president of the United States is a declared candidate for the presidency again. He's running for office. And it just so happens that this former president, who is a declared candidate for the presidency, is also leading in the polls, both on the Republican side and in the general election against Joe Biden, depending on whose poll you look at. So that's all pretty dubious. And there's one more dubious part to it, which we'll get to a little bit later as we're reviewing some more of the news. So that was Trump's post on Truth Social. Now, as to the indictment itself, now, here's where this gets interesting. Until the indictment was unsealed the other day, most people had a suspicion what it was going to be about. A violation of, the Espionage Act, which is something that was invented in the early part of the 20th century. I shouldn't say invented. I should say passed into law, signed off on by President Wilson. Boo! I got a lot of problems with Wilson, and we can get into that some other days, you might imagine. But very rarely is it ever invoked. Now, so you got the Espionage Act and you got the Presidential Records Act. Now, the indictment was unsealed Friday afternoon. And I'm going to show you part of it, not all of it, but there's one part of this indictment where I think Trump has got a problem, okay? And I say that on the grounds that there are legal scholars who are looking at this and they're coming to the conclusion, yeah, this part might be an issue. So let's take a look at part of the indictment. And at the time, and read this directly. At times, material in this indictment on or about the dates and approximate time stated below. Now, where this gets sticky for Trump is the tail end of page 2 and going into page 3. Item number 6. On 2 occasions in 2021, Trump showed classified documents to others as follows. Letter A. In July 2021, at Trump National Golf Course in Bedminster, New Jersey, the Bedminster Club, during an audio recorded meeting with a writer, a publisher, and 2 members of his staff, none of whom possessed a security clearance, Trump showed and described a, quote, plan of attack that Trump said was prepared for him by the Department of Defense and a senior military official. Trump told the individuals that the plan was, quote, highly confidential and secret. Trump also said, quote, as president, I could have declassified it and, quote, now I can't, but this is still a secret. Letter B. In August or September 2021 at the Bedminster Club, Trump showed a representative of his political action committee who did not possess a security clearance a classified map related to a military operation and told the representative that he should not be showing it to the representative and that the representative should not get too close. Okay. Now, again, I am no lawyer, and I am relying on the opinion of other lawyers, and their opinions, for that matter, are very divergent, by the way. So, what does all this mean? Well, it depends on who you ask. But I want to play a clip from an interview that Professor Alan Dershowitz, Professor Emeritus at Harvard, a celebrated attorney, celebrated constitutional scholar, giving his opinion about all this. So the interview is with Forbes magazine, and I want to play part of this because if anybody can speak to what this is or is not, well, good morning, sir. To the Welsh Republic, we lift a mug in your general direction. I shouldn't say mug. That's a little too Stephen Crowder-ish. Good morning, Welsh. How you doing, brother? Glad to have you in the audience. So we're going to play a clip from Professor Alan Dershowitz, and he's being interviewed by a woman at Forbes magazine. And listen to what he says about the parts about Trump showing these documents and it being on tape. So take a listen to this.
To win electoral results. But having read the indictment now, it's somewhat stronger, at least one part of it, somewhat stronger than I had initially believed it would be. And
what part of it stronger?
The tape recording that he participated in with a writer, apparently a guy who was writing a book about Meadows, the chief of staff. Mm-hmm. And in it, there's a discussion apparently about whether to attack Iran, and in order to defend himself against the charge somehow that maybe he either wanted to do it or didn't want to do it, that wasn't clear. He brings out some papers, and you apparently, according to the tape, you hear rustling of the papers, and then he shows it to this unauthorized writer and other person and says, this is classified, secret. I could have declassified it when I was president, but I didn't. But I can't use it because it's secret. And then apparently shows it to him. Now, what we don't know from the tape is whether he shows it to him to read or just shows it to him kind of to show off and say, see, I have this. I'm not going to let you read it, but here it is. So we don't know that. It might be important whether or not the unauthorized person actually was given the ability to read the details of the classified military plan to possibly attack Iran. We don't know the answer to that. So I would say we don't quite have a smoking gun, but we surely at this point have a gun.
Okay, that's Alan Dershowitz. And you know what? I am not going to argue against a man who's taught law at Harvard, and especially someone who's been in and around a courtroom the same way that Dershowitz has, and is probably one of the best civil libertarians in America. Personally, again, and I'm no lawyer, I look at this and I go, yeah, okay, you're on tape saying this, but Dershowitz does bring up a perfectly valid point. Okay, so Trump has it in his possession. Okay. You hear it rustling in the background. Did he actually show it to this reporter? Or did he just wave it and like, hey, I've got this and this is what it was and yada, yada, yada. Okay. Now, also, a lot of this case hinges on what is a classified document, what is not a classified document, and what documents a former president is allowed to have in his possession. Now, there is a lot, and I mean a lot, of interpretation about what is lawful and permissible under the Presidential Records Act. So, and there are all kinds of lawyers weighing in on this thing. So I'm going to show you a tweet from Tom Fitton, who is the head of Judicial Watch. Now, if you don't know anything about Judicial Watch, these cats go all the way back to the days of the Clintons in the early 90s, okay? They have been in one form or another, and it doesn't matter if it's Democrat or Republican administrations. These guys are all about transparency in matters legal. So I'm going to read you this tweet by Tom Fitton, and I think this is interesting. He says, I have carefully reviewed the indictment of Trump by his political opponents at the Biden Justice Department. Judicial Watch has 30 years of experience litigating federal and presidential records issues, including the famous Clinton sock drawer case, which we'll get back to that one in just a minute. The document dishonestly ignores the U.S. Constitution, the Presidential Records Act, legal precedent, and the DOJ/Archives' previous position that White House records a president takes with him when he leaves the White House are presumptively personal and not subject to review by partisan Biden appointees at DOJ or archives. Under the Constitution, federal law, and precedent, none of the documents currently, quote, classified or, quote, national defense information that restricts Trump's handling of them. They are all his personal records and, frankly, should be returned to him. If justice prevails, this indictment won't survive scrutiny by honest constitutionalist judges and will be thrown out. Okay, now let's get to something else. You heard in that tweet the reference to the Clinton sock drawer incident. Well, I said that Judicial Watch has a history when it comes to matters of transparency and records and law going all the way back to the Clintons. Well, you can make an argument Judicial Watch has had a bone to get Bill Clinton for a long time. And one of the more infamous run-ins that they had with the Clintons was years ago after Bill Clinton left office. This is about, 10, 12 years ago. There were tapes that were found to be in the possession of Bill Clinton. And they were in his sock drawer, is where they were found. Judicial Watch took this thing all the way up the food chain in the judiciary, and it was ruled that no, under Presidential Records Act, these items are personal to him, and he gets to keep them. They don't get returned to the National Archive. Now, if we're going by previous precedent, then, strictly speaking, whatever documents Donald Trump had in his possession at Bedminster or at Mar-a-Lago down in Florida are his, at least according to the interpretation these gentlemen take of the Presidential Records Act. Now, there's the law, and then there's common sense. And now here's what I'm getting at. All right, let's say that the law, either by statute or by judicial interpretation, says, yeah, a president has the right to keep these documents. They're his, they're personal effects after he leaves the White House. Okay, fine. That sort of gets to the question, should you be waving them around in front of a reporter? Well, to me, common sense says, well, with all due respect, Mr. President, no, you shouldn't be doing that. Now, I don't care if it's Trump or Biden or whoever. No, you don't wave this stuff around, okay? You're opening the door for a lot of problems, not just for yourself, but for the country potentially. But laying that aside, according to one interpretation, they're his. Now, that's Tom Fitton's interpretation of it. I'm going to play you a 2-minute clip from Kash Patel. Kash Patel is a former official at the Department of Defense in the Trump administration. He's currently an advisor to the Trump campaign right now. Now, this has to do with the Presidential Records Act. So I want you to listen to this because this to me is really interesting. Take a listen.
Simple. Let's take the indictment on face value. President Trump brought things with him from the White House when he was leaving the presidency. And I believe it was either to Mar-a-Lago or Bedminster. I can't remember which one he went to first. Okay. It doesn't matter if he took a sticky note or 10,000 boxes of information. Last count I had it, President Obama was still going through 3 million pages of documents he took. And it doesn't matter what's in them either. The same law would apply to him. And so the Presidential Records Act is simple. The president can take whatever he wants when he leaves office. That's it. And here's the kicker. Part of that act says it becomes his or her personal property. That means it transitions from being U.S. government property to the personal private property of the past president. That's the Presidential Records Act in a nutshell. If Congress wanted the classification acts and espionage acts written in the 50s to supersede the Presidential Act written after it, they would have written the Presidential Records Act differently. The law that comes after supersedes the prior unless Congress says otherwise. And they didn't say otherwise in the Presidential Records Act creation. In the indictment, you see a paragraph or two about how President Trump is speaking to his lawyer about options. And if you know President Trump, which I know you do, and of course, I'm still a senior advisor and I talk to him frequently, he jokes all the time. That's his mannerism a lot. You can't capture that in a black and white typecast. But let's put that aside for a second. So they took that and they said we went to a federal judge ruled that attorney-client privilege doesn't apply because there's a crime fraud exception. Wow. You just literally told the world, DOJ, that any criminal is charged with any offense or potential to be charged, or anyone who's not even charged with an offense and has an attorney-client relationship can't talk possible options with their attorney. Simple.
Okay. Again, I am no lawyer. I am relying on the opinions of other lawyers until judges start ruling on this thing. But if Kash Patel is right, and the Presidential Records Act says that when a president leaves office, that the documents stop being the property of the United States government and are now the personal effects of the man or woman leaving the office, then what are we arguing about here? I'm serious. What are we arguing about here? If that is true, if the Presidential Records Act is just as Kash Patel and Tom Fitton are interpreting it, that those documents become the property of the soon-to-be former president as they leave office, what are we arguing about? Now, there's the law and then there's propriety. This is where I kind of come down on this. If you have documents in your possession, or let's just say you find you have documents in your possession that are military matters or what have you, should you hang on to them? Okay, maybe not. Unless you have them in a secured area with restricted access and nobody, and I mean nobody, gets to these things unless they go through some stringent protocols. But laying that aside, I would say commonsensically, all right, if it's military or intelligence related, no, you probably shouldn't have your hands on them. But that said, There's what's propriety, and then there's what's legal. If in his estimation it's legal for him to have these things and the law permits him to do it, then again I ask the question, what are these prosecutors griping about? I've got a feeling I know what they're griping about, by the way. They're griping about something in the defense of their boss who's currently in the White House. Because I just find the timing of all this to be really strange. And I'll get to what I'm meaning in a moment. So that's Kash Patel's take on the whole thing. Well, there's a couple other lawyers out there that definitely have something to say in this matter. One of them is Jeffrey Clark. Jeffrey Clark used to work in the Department of Justice under the Trump administration, and I'm going to read his tweet in its entirety. He is responding to a social media influencer on Twitter named Bill Mitchell. And I'm going to read this verbatim, so give me a second here. Jeffrey Clark says, I have read the entire indictment. Let me explain something to everyone about how statutory interpretation works. And it's clearly a weak spot for Jack Smith, who is the special counsel in this case for the federal government. Given his 9-0 smackdown in the U.S. Supreme Court on the Honest Services case against former Virginia Governor Bob McDonnell and his failed prosecution against wealthy Democrat trial lawyer and VP candidate John Edwards. As the Edwards case shows, Smith is particularly stymied by highly complex regulatory statutes. Ooh, I think that's lawyer speak from one to another saying, you're a dumbass, but I could be wrong. Here, Smith is totally ignoring the Presidential Records Act, but it's on the field and cannot be ignored. When multiple statutes apply, they often must be harmonized. One of the key principles of statutory interpretation is that the specific controls over the general. And the Presidential Records Act is the more specific statute given what the facts are at issue as alleged in the indictment. It controls here over the Espionage Act unless, perhaps, Smith could show that Donald Trump was acting as a spy, giving national defense info to our nation's enemies. And of course, he can't because Trump is so loyal to the U.S. he sweats Americana on a hot day, and on a cold day, his soup is red, white, and blue. It's an interesting way of phrasing it. Kind of funny. You didn't think lawyers could have a sense of humor, but you never know. Oh, jeez. Oh, man. Okay. Crash, you're probably right. All right. Yeah, he's calling him a full retard. You know what? I have said it before, and I'll say it again. I have the smartest audience, and I will also add that I have the funniest audience in the whole of social media. Thank you, Crash Mondo. Nah, he's just being a full retard. Anyway, hang on. Let me get back on track here. All right. So ironically, like many of the left's plays are really a form of psychological projection, the Espionage Act as to China, Romania, and Ukraine perhaps is in the Biden family's tarot card reading, their fortune telling. But DOJ under Biden cannot simply wish away Trump's defenses. Sadly, the leftist media in their breathless frenzy will not try to educate their viewers on how complex statutory construction works. And truth be told, most of the relevant viewers wouldn't get it even if CNN tried, because they have something akin to immunity to deep rational analysis. Ooh. To logic and to the law. They are like paper people who could only see in 2 dimensions. Now, I want to go back to something. And this is something that Jeffrey Clark mentions earlier on in this tweet. One key principle of statutory interpretation is the specific controls over the general. And the Presidential Records Act is the more specific statute. Go ahead. Go right ahead. Go right ahead, Crash. Steal it. Steal it for all you're worth, brother. One of the specific principles of statutory interpretation is that the specific controls over the general, and the Presidential Records Act is the more specific statute given what the facts are at issue as alleged in the indictment. It controls over the Espionage Act unless perhaps Smith could show that Donald Trump was acting as a spy giving national defense info to our nation's enemies. Okay, let's deal with that for a second. There are 37 counts in this indictment. 31 of them are under the Espionage Act. Now, I have a question for anybody out there, and I don't care if you're a lefty, I don't care if you're on the right, I don't care if you're in the middle, I don't care what you are. Okay? For whatever else you may think about Donald Trump, does anybody really believe that that man would knowingly give away national security secrets to an enemy of the United States? I'll ask that question again. Regardless of what you think of Trump, whether you like him, don't like him, you think he's a braggadocious ass, you think he's a pompous fool, whatever you may think of him, does anybody really believe that Donald J. Trump would knowingly give away intelligence or national security secrets to an enemy of the United States? Because that may be the only way that the prosecution for the government could make this stick under the Espionage Act. Because if the Presidential Records Act, in the opinion of Tom Fitton of Judicial Watch, in the opinion of Kash Patel, who is also a lawyer, in the opinion of Jeffrey Clark, who's a lawyer, if the Presidential Records Act is what they're claiming it is, that upon leaving office, the former President of the United States, whomever it may be, that documents that he takes with him go from being federally controlled documents to personal effects, then I'll ask you it again. What are we arguing about here? What are we arguing? Now, like I said, I know exactly what we're arguing about. What we're arguing about is, as I said at the top of the show, what we're arguing about is the fact that you have a former president of the United States who is running for the presidency again and is the leading contender on the Republican side and may be leading over the current incumbent in office, and the current incumbent in office and his people have got to find a way to take him down or take him out. That's what this gets down to. Now, like I said, there's law and there's propriety. Should Trump hang on to this stuff if he knows he has it in his possession? Okay, probably not. But if the PRA is correct, legally, it's his to do with what he wants. So, now, come Tuesday at about 3 o'clock, Trump will be arraigned in a courtroom in Miami, Florida. And strangely enough, I think there's going to be a lot of press around that event. I could be wrong, I say with dripping sarcasm. But yeah, this is where we are at. Now, one other thing to consider. Let me see. There is one other aspect of this that I find interesting, disturbing, and frankly, it may get the whole damn thing thrown out. About a week ago, CNN reported that the DOJ was in possession of tapes where Trump is admitting that he has documents in his possession that had not been declassified. Well, Jeffrey Clark, in a separate tweet, brings up a really interesting point. He's responding to someone and says, "You didn't follow my point correctly. The leak is about what would be central to the indictment as drafted. That could only have come from the DOJ since they exclusively controlled the writing of the indictment, unless DOJ shared a draft with the Biden White House and someone leaked it from there, and that's an even worse leak. But one thing is for sure, it's not coming from Trump or the Secret Service. They didn't see the indictment until it was unsealed. They were totally beyond the veil of ignorance on this." Okay, if you're wondering what I'm getting at and what Jeffrey Clark is getting at, let me make it real simple. Somebody leaked this to CNN. It wouldn't have been Trump. It wouldn't have been Trump's lawyers. And it wouldn't have been the Secret Service. How did CNN get their hands on the fact that the Department of Justice was in possession of these recordings. Well, seems to me somebody inside the DOJ's prosecution gave it away. Now, I could be dead wrong about that, but in the absence of any proof, that's open to interpretation. That's a very strong possibility. And if that's the case, does that constitute prosecutorial misconduct and could get the whole thing thrown out? I'm inclined to say yes. There's also a report floating around out there that one of these DOJ lawyers dangled a judgeship in front of a lawyer for somebody else who's being indicted related to this, Trump's body man, that, follows the president, former president, wherever he goes, dangled a judgeship in front of the guy. I mean, I tell you what, there's a lot to sort out in all this, and it is a long way to go in a court of public opinion or in an actual court of law. But I'm telling you what, this just stinks to high heaven on so many levels. Now, like I said, I am not trying to elevate Trump or anybody else above the law. If somebody has broken the law in a provable manner, then yes, by all means, I don't care who they are, let them suffer the wrath and the consequence of the law that has been broken, whatever that punishment may be. Okay? Now, I said a moment ago that I find the timing of all this to be very curious. And if you're wondering what I'm talking about, let me show you something. And I'll set this up first. There has been an ongoing conflict between House Oversight Committee Chairman James Comer, Republican of Kentucky, and FBI Director Christopher Wray. And basically what it gets down to is this. And I've been talking about this in videos now for probably a good month and a half. It has come to the attention of Chairman Comer and also Senator Chuck Grassley, the ranking minority member on the Senate Banking Committee, that the FBI is in possession of what's called an FD 1023. Now, if you don't know what that document is, an FD 1023 is basically an informant's account of information that they have. Now, this particular FD 1023 form is of great interest to Chairman Comer, as he has been advised it has in its possession information related to a bribery scheme involving Joe Biden when he was vice president. And very true. Very true. There are a lot of bad laws on the books. Totally. This 1023 supposedly has proof that Biden engaged in a bribery scheme. Now, about a month ago, Comer's Oversight Committee issued a subpoena to the FBI to get their hands on this document. Now, let me back up and say something about the document that most people don't realize. That document is completely unclassified. There is not a reason in the world why FBI cannot turn this document over to the House Oversight Committee. And frankly, even beyond the question of whether the document's classified or not, there's to me a greater principle involved. And it's this. The FBI works for Congress. They work for the people's representatives. The Congress appropriates every dime the FBI spends. Okay? So when your boss tells you, I want to see a certain document, you don't argue with them about it. You turn it over, especially if it's an unclassified document. Well, this has been going back and forth for a while, and it got so bad that what would have been Thursday morning of this week, the House Oversight Committee was going to draft up mark up a bill that would hold FBI Director Christopher Wray in contempt of Congress. Now, would it have had criminal teeth? Who knows? From what I understand, it would have. It wouldn't have been some kind of civil citation. They would have said, you're in criminal contempt. Well, rounds about 10:50 on Wednesday night, this article dropped in the Washington Examiner. FBI agrees to provide Biden document to Comer and Oversight Committee. FBI Director Christopher Wray will provide a form to the House Oversight Committee that Republicans allege contain criminal evidence of a, quote, criminal scheme involving Joe Biden. The oversight meeting to vote on holding the FBI Director in contempt of Congress for his previous refusal to provide the document has been taken off the docket for Thursday morning because the FBI agreed to allow the Oversight Committee to review the document, according to a press release from the committee. Okay. So Thursday morning rolls around, and the FBI does just that. They bring the document over to Congress. What has been reported by members of the Oversight Committee is that they were taken into what's called a SCIF. It's a secured room, very, very top secret-y. You know, you can't X-ray your way into it. You can't wire your way into it. You got to leave your cell phones outside, whatever. Okay. And they got to look at the document. And the members of the Oversight Committee who got to see this document are now even more curious and are digging in even harder because they have come out and said that the document has hard evidence of proof that a $10 million bribe went from a company in Ukraine, believed to be Burisma, and that $10 million was split between two people, Hunter Biden and Joe. Now, isn't it funny that on the day that the House Oversight Committee gets their hands on this FBI document and it starts corroborating work and research that they've already been doing, isn't it funny that the Justice Department, or I should say Donald Trump, announces that he's been advised that he has been indicted? Now, I know what everybody out there watching this is going to say. It's like, oh, come on, Front Porch, you're being conspiratorial. Am I? What is everybody talking about now? The Trump indictment. Is anybody talking about what the Oversight Committee found in that document? I'm not saying it won't be talked about again, but it's taken a lot of steam out of the impact of what they got to see. Now, there is one other thing I want to show you related to that. And you know what? I'm just going to play this and let me set this up. So, yeah. Well, oh, hang on, crash. Hang on to that. Hang on to that. I kind of have a point related to your question. Yeah. You hang on to that because I kind of got a side point related to all that. But you're absolutely right. Congress relies on the FBI to arrest people. Who do you call when the FBI is the problem? That's a great question. And to me, that goes to something else I want to get into. So let me jot a note to myself real fast. Why? Because I'm old and I don't remember stuff anymore. So I got to write notes. Okay. I want to set this up. So British Prime Minister Rishi Sunak is visiting the White House. And as is customary, there's a joint press conference held, to show our solidarity with our brothers from Great Britain and everything else. And as they're wrapping it up, Joe Biden is asked a question. So I'm going to set this, that sets it up, and I'm going to play this. Listen to what happens here.
I'm supposed to walk off the stage now. But wait.
The bribery allegation, Congresswoman Nancy Mace says there's damning evidence in the FBI file that you sold out the country. Do you have a response to the congressional Republicans?
Where's the money?
That was a mistake. That was a huge mistake. For a lot of different reasons. Okay? Now here's what I'm getting at. Number one, you don't throw red meat in front of a bunch of dogs that have already got the scent, your scent, and expect that they're just going to let it go. They're going to tear into that meat, and they're going to even get more of the scent for your blood. They're going to track you. You just invited the entirety of the House Oversight Committee and a Republican Congress to dig into this even harder and deeper and faster than they did before. The second reason that it's a mistake is you basically have opened the door for them to make their case. Because here's what's going to happen. If they can track that money, that $5 million that supposedly got your share of that 10, if they're able to track that back to you, then you just basically made their opening statement. Where's the money? Here's the proof. Because right now, that's all they've got to do. And trust me, that's going to be a monumental task. Because from everything that I'm hearing, the way that this has been constructed, it's like money laundering and layering of money. There's a whole bunch of shell corporations set up, LLCs. And the way this has been done, the money goes from the originator through the LLCs, and then supposedly under this theory, it gets to Biden or a member of the Biden family. If they are able to prove that any of that $10 million made its way into President Biden's pockets back when he was vice president, and Biden somehow influenced U.S. policy for the benefit of the company or person that gave him the money, that is a clear-cut case of bribery. Now, I want to go back to something Crash brought up. Who do you call when the FBI is the problem? I agree with you completely, which to me, all the more reason why you get rid of the FBI. Okay? I mean, I'm to that point. It's quite obvious there are serious structural problems inside the Department of Justice, and the FBI is just, that institution is beyond repair as far as I'm concerned. Now, if the House Oversight Committee is able to make this argument and make it stick, okay, and they can prove that the money got to Joe Biden, then for them to refer the matter over to the Department of Justice is a waste. It's a waste of their time. It's a waste of everything they will have done up to that point. Because the Department of Justice isn't going to touch Biden. Not while Merrick Garland's there. Not while the current leadership of the DOJ is in place. They won't touch him. That criminal referral will just be like, it's in the trash can. It's gone. They won't touch Biden with it. There's only one thing for them to do. And that is, you start writing up articles of impeachment in the House Judiciary Committee, and you bring it to a vote on the House floor. And unlike previous impeachments, be it Trump or even Bill Clinton, if they can prove that which they allege, this is going to be probably one of the most justifiable cases of impeachment and conviction in the Senate that the country has ever seen. See, because everybody gets hung up on this, that the Congress has the right to impeach someone for bribery, treason, or high crimes and misdemeanors. Well, for the past 30 years, we, the American people, have been arguing in one form or another about what high crimes and misdemeanors means. Well, if they're able to prove that which they allege against Joe Biden, then that, phrase, high crimes and misdemeanors, that's off the table. Treason's off the table. But bribery's up for discussion, because you will have a clear case of money going from one party to an American governmental official for the express purpose of trying to influence American government policy to the benefit of that person or party who gave the money, and that's bribery. Now, I know Democrats, oh, yes, it is. That's bribery. That's just good old-fashioned bribery. Ain't nothing else but that. I don't have to be a lawyer to figure that one out. One hand washes the other. One hand gives money. The other hand gives back to the first part, something for the benefit of the money. That's bribery. And that is a clear-cut case. Now, I know what the American press is going to do, and I know what the Democrats are going to do. Maybe. The press is just going to attack the Republicans for being partisan. And I will add one piece of advice for all you congressional Republicans out there that might be working on the Oversight Committee who just happened to see this broadcast. Trust me, when you bring this against Joe Biden, you better make sure you got every I dotted and every T crossed, and you can prove it. And not only prove it, but you have to present it in a understandable manner for the American people, such that, crazy Aunt Alice down the street can understand where you're talking about here, okay? Because, in these sort of situations, it's very easy to get lost in the weeds. You do not want to get lost in the weeds, not with this one. But if you can prove it, and you've got an airtight case, then you need to bring articles of impeachment into the House Judiciary Committee and vote the question. So I find and like I said, going back to what I was saying earlier, I find all this fascinating that on the very same day that we find out what's in that form the FBI's had their hands on, that it's announced that Trump's under indictment. Very interesting indeed. But like I said, Biden may have made a serious mistake with that little gaffe of his. Where's the money? Dude, you're inviting trouble. So that's what's going on with the Trump indictment and the continual review of Joe Biden's, shall we say, questionable activities. Now, there are other things going on in the world, and one of them kind of ties into the first two stories we've been talking about. And if you're just now joining us, my name is Brian Trippett. I am the Front Porch Conservative. This is Front Porch Brunch, a little live stream dedicated to you, the American hard-working person out there, man or woman, giving you a chance to catch up on the news. We're on YouTube, we're on Rumble, we're on Twitter. We are not monetized on Twitter, but on the other hand, if you've got some extra coin that you feel like parting with, well, go over to Rumble and give a rant. Throw it in the cup. You will not offend my sensibilities in the slightest. We'll put it toward what I call the Fedora Fund. But, so yeah, that's who we are. That's what we're doing. Oh, my goodness. Yeah, you are absolutely right about that, Crash. Joe Biden's been a cocky son of a gun for years, and his, smart ass self is more than likely going to hang him out to dry. And the inestimable Reuben Christopher Haynes, yes, absolutely, Reuben. Absolutely. They've got to take the spotlight off Joe Biden's activities. Let's put it on to Trump. And, I sort of alluded to it earlier. There's a catchphrase, confession through projection. Doesn't it seem odd that everything they're accusing Donald Trump of are the very things that Joe Biden may have done himself? Interesting. But I said there are other things going on in the news, and we've had some earth-shaking news that's happened this week, and not because of the person who was involved. It's just I'm being somewhat facetious. We have three, count them, new candidates running for president. Former Vice President Mike Pence former New Jersey Governor Chris Christie, and current Governor of North Dakota Bargram. Okay, now, God, all right, I'm going to confess to something here. I'm going to confess to this. People ask me, how come you're not covering the presidential election more than you should? How come you're not covering? I was like, because at this point it's boring. Oh, come on, you're supposed to be a political person. Yeah, I'm a political person. But to be perfectly honest, it's boring at this point. Now, why is it boring? Well, I'll tell you. Because frankly, there's nothing in the dynamics that's changing right now. Okay? What I'm getting at is this. Here's Donald Trump, and here's everybody else. And it doesn't matter whose poll you look at, Donald Trump leads anywhere from 25 to 40 points on the Republican field. Doesn't matter whose names are listed in the poll other than Trump. And frankly, I don't see anything at this point changing that dynamic. As a matter of fact, I'm going to make you a prediction right now. There will undoubtedly be new polling about the state of the Republican nomination race that'll come out next week, probably starting tomorrow. Here's my prediction. Donald Trump's poll numbers will go up. You heard right. Donald Trump's poll numbers will go up. And why is that? It's real simple. Because the American people, particularly the Republican voters, okay, are going to look at what's being done to Trump, and they're going to have two words in their brain. Now, they may be phrased differently, but it boils down to two words: political persecution. They're going to look at what's being done to Donald Trump, and they're going to say to themselves, this man is being politically persecuted. And if the federal government's trying to go after him, that's my guy. If they're that scared of him, that's my guy. That's the guy I want to vote for. So his poll, I'm telling you, mark it down. Trust Uncle Front Porch on this one, y'all. Trump's poll numbers are going to go up. Probably starting tomorrow. Might take till about Wednesday or Thursday next week for it to all shake out, for all the polls to come out, but his poll numbers are going to go up. And you know that's got to be eating at Ron DeSantis. And I'll tell you why. Because DeSantis, by all accounts, has built his campaign on a strategy that says this: when all this legal stuff against Trump weighs him down so badly, or causes him to get out of the race or whatever, it'll redound to our benefit, and we will be the nominee. Now, I've got a question that I'm going to put this out there more or less philosophically. Okay? How piss poor of a campaign are you running, or how weak of a candidate are you, that your strategy for winning doesn't have to do with the brilliance of the campaign you're running, and doesn't have to do with how strong a candidate you are? It has to do with the fact that some piece of bad luck is going to befall your opponent, and it will redound to your benefit. Now, I'm sorry. I don't care I don't care if it's Ron DeSantis. I don't care if it's Mike Pence. I don't care if it's Chris Christie. I don't care who it is. That has got to be one of the worst things, worst ideas that you could possibly put out there as a way to justify why you should be the Republican nominee for president. Hey, vote for me because I'm not nearly as, I haven't been indicted like the other guy has. What the hell kind of strategy is that? What the hell kind of positive vision are you presenting to the American people? I mean, seriously. There's no positive strength or vision in that strategy. None. Looks like 1968 again with RFK. They are the deep state, will do all they can to remove Trump. If so, dude, I agree with 3/4 of that. And Ruben, I say this with all due respect. I really hope that last sentence that you're wrong. I really do. I love you. I genuinely love you. And I'm not saying you're wrong, but please don't be offended when I say I really do hope you're wrong. But yeah, it's 68 all over again. Oh, in a lot of ways. I think Ruben's absolutely right. There's a lot of similarities. A ton of them. But yeah, I mean, think about it for a second. Think about how piss poor of a campaign you're running and how weak of a candidate you are, that in order for you to win, the other guy has to lose. And not just lose legally. Now, I mentioned that Mike Pence, Chris Christie, and the governor of North Dakota, Bargram, are now into this thing. Bargram, I don't think is that big of a deal. And don't get me wrong, I'm not trying to be disrespectful to him, but I mean, honestly, if he polls anywhere above 5%, I'll be shocked. Absolutely shocked. Okay? He's down there in Asa Hutchinson territory, and frankly, I like Bargram better than do Hutchinson. Hutchinson's a twerp, and has been for quite a few years. He went off the reservation a long time ago, in my estimation. And Mike Pence, while he is a former vice president, that man couldn't be elected dog catcher in the Republican Party right now. Not after what he did to Trump on January 6th. Not after that stunt he pulled. Because the plan was that, Pence was supposed to ask for the electors to go back to the states, and the states, look at it again. Well, after he stabbed Trump in the back, I'm telling you right now, right or wrong, Mike Pence couldn't be elected dog catcher. But Chris Christie, to me, is interesting. And somebody brought up something in an article that I think is definitely worth talking about. So let's get into this real quick. This is from MSNBC. Yeah, I know. You never thought you'd ever see the Front Porch Conservative quoting something out of MSNBC. But I tell you what, this writer brings up something that a lot of people aren't thinking about. And I want to read this. Article is written by a gentleman named Jahad Jones. Headline: Christie could pose a serious threat to DeSantis for one key reason. Most people following Chris Christie's 2024 presidential bid believe he stands no chance of winning the Republican nomination. They ain't wrong. The former New Jersey governor isn't a widely popular figure in today's GOP, that's for sure. And it's very possible he will fail to meet the polling and donor thresholds to qualify for the party's primary debates. I hope he doesn't. Nonetheless, the debates are being framed as a golden goose for the Christie campaign. The idea that if Chris Christie has a chance to confront Donald Trump on stage, he'll rhetorically embarrass and expose the former president for being a political disaster and an obstacle to the GOP's electoral chances. But if Christie is actually seeking the nomination and not just seeking to keep it from Trump, he's going to have to broaden his rhetorical savagery beyond Trump, as he did quite effectively in 2016. That's where Christie poses a unique threat to Ron DeSantis, whose campaign has consistently ranked a distant second behind Trump in the polls. On Tuesday's episode of The Readout, Joy Reid reminded viewers of Christie's famous exchange with Senator Marco Rubio during a debate in 2016, when Christie called out Rubio for repeatedly using an obviously rehearsed line. That exchange went viral and helped sandbag Rubio's campaign by portraying the senator as a robotic candidate unfit for primetime. Rubio still seems hung up on that moment, given he tweeted about Tuesday night after Christie's campaign announcement. But here's the thing. DeSantis has a similar vulnerability. He's painfully awkward, and his rhetoric often sounds over-rehearsed. Now, I don't know much about this gentleman named Jones who wrote this article, but I'll tell you what, he's got an absolutely valid point. It's not just an issue that if Chris Christie manages to get on a debate stage with his fellow Republican nominees, he can't just attack Trump. And frankly, that's like a lightweight going up against Muhammad Ali in his prime. Do you really want to, if you're Chris Christie, do you really want to do that? You really want to take on Trump? Because Trump has a lot of practice at being able to tag people, rhetorically speaking. But lay that aside. The author of that article brings up a really fascinating point. Chris Christie has got to broaden his attacks beyond just Trump. He's going to have to go after some of his fellow Republican nominees if he's going to consolidate the I'm not Donald Trump vote. Well, if he lays into DeSantis the same way he laid into Marco Rubio back in 2016, DeSantis has got a big problem on his hands. I mean, DeSantis' campaign has problems anyway, for any number of different reasons, okay? But he doesn't need any further problems, particularly someone with the, how shall I say it, rapier tongue of Chris Christie laying into him good and heavy. He does not need that kind of a problem at all. All right? So, can you just imagine what happens if Chris Christie gets on the same stage as Ron DeSantis and he lights into DeSantis? That's going to be really fun to watch. But I mentioned a moment ago that I find the Republican GOP nomination race at this point boring. Because and I do, it's the same issue. There's Trump and there's everybody else. And until something happens that starts shaving points off Trump's lead and somebody consolidates the I'm not Donald Trump vote, doesn't matter. And I'm telling you, I stand by what I say on this. Donald Trump's poll numbers are going to go up starting next week. You watch. You watch. So we've got Donald Trump being indicted. We've got the House Oversight Committee, having the wind taken out of their sails just at the same time that Trump is announcing that he's been indicted. So what else goes on in America? Well, hang on. We'll get into all that in just 1 second. For those of you who might be joining the live stream right now, my name is Brian Trippett. I am the Front Porch Conservative. This is Front Porch Brunch, a news live stream that's dedicated to allowing you, the hardworking American man and woman, the opportunity to catch up on the news and unwind from your week while you do it. So you might be having your earbuds popped in. You might be throwing in a load of laundry. You might be sipping on a cup of coffee, whatever. So we're here to help you find out what's going on in the news. And there are other news items other than things political. Well, let's get into one of the bigger stories that happened this week. Tucker Carlson's back, ladies and gentlemen. And I got to admit it, between Donald Trump and Tucker Carlson, they ruined a couple of good videos I was planning on making. Which, don't get me wrong. There are moments when I sit down at my desk and I'm sitting here going, my God, what in the hell am I going to make a video about? And then all of a sudden you get a piece of news dropped in your lap and it's just like, holy cow, here we go. Well, that's what happened to me the other night when it came to Tucker Carlson. I had come in from work earlier in the evening. I laid down for a nap and I woke up and I happened to see a tweet from Benny Johnson. Shout out to Benny Johnson, by the way. One of those fellows that I look up to for what I'm doing, and also he's just a good dude. So Benny tweets that Tucker Carlson's on Twitter. And I went, ooh, this just got spicy. So I popped down to the computer, or the central hub, as I like to call it, started looking around, and Tucker Carlson posted on Twitter. Now, you may sit there and think, well, what's the big deal? Well, for those of you not familiar with what's the backstory of this, as most of you know, Fox News and Tucker Carlson parted under very less than amicable terms. Basically, what Fox News did is they didn't fire Tucker Carlson. They didn't fire him. They just took him off the air. And they're still paying him money. And in the opinion of a lot of people, Tucker is going to be in that situation until 2025, unless he can get out from the contract that Fox has him under right now. Because basically they're paying him to do nothing. Can you think about that for a second? Can you imagine how much money a company has that you can pay a guy $20 million a year to sit around and do nothing? Think about that. I'd like to have that problem. Hey, Front Porch, would you like to be paid $20 million a year and do absolutely nothing? Sign me up. Okay. But that's the backstory. Now, A few days or maybe a week after Tucker was unceremoniously taken off the air by his employer, he went out to Twitter to announce that he would be hosting a show on Twitter very similar to what he had done at Fox News. And everybody got all excited. And I'm one of them. I love Tucker. I mean, for any number of different reasons. I just think Tucker's a great journalist. And he is legitimately what Fox News always claimed they were. We're going to present you with the facts. We're going to give you our take on it. And then you can make up your own mind. That's Tucker Carlson in a nutshell. He's like, I'm going to give you both sides of it, and you decide for yourself what's going on. But the thing about Tucker, unlike a lot of people in his line of work, he is very informative. He'll give you perspectives from people you never even heard of. I mean, the fact that Tucker Carlson, before he was taken off the air at Fox, had Robert Kennedy Jr. on there for an interview, to me gives you some idea of Tucker's willingness to have a conversation with anybody. May not agree with you, but he'll have a conversation with you. So on June the 6th, which would have been, what is that? Tuesday night? Yeah, Tuesday night. Tucker Carlson posts a 10-minute video on Twitter. Now, I'm not going to play the video, but I want to show you the stats on this thing. And this, now keep in mind, he posted this 6 p.m. Eastern on Tuesday night. Okay. I want you to look at everything this has done since then. All right. I'm going to blow this up a little bit, make it a little bigger, make it easier for you to read. Basically, look at this. 112 million views. And the night that I was doing my video on this, he had gotten it up to like 60 plus million. He's doubled it since then. Okay. 77,000 comments, 268,000 retweets, 893,000 likes. This was a 10-minute video, folks. A 10-minute video. He's talking about the blowing up of the dam in Ukraine and other things going on. There's 10 minutes. A 10-minute video. And he's got 112 million views. It's incredible. And I think it speaks to at least two things. Number one, the love that is out there for Tucker Carlson. And number two, it speaks, I think, to a hunger for real news and information. Truly, and maybe I'm being overly optimistic here, but I don't think I am. I think there is a palpable hunger among people to find out what's really going on. I'm not saying they're going to dig into every little piece of thing you ever put in front of them. That's not my point. But most people want to know what's really going on. Don't give me the palabra. Give me the truth. I mean, I like hearing it, but tell me what's going on. Tucker Carlson can help fill that need better than a whole lot of people in mainstream media. Okay. So 112 million likes, 77,000 comments, 268,000 retweets, 800, almost 900,000 likes. What does Tucker Carlson get for his good deed? Well, simple. Fox is suing him. You heard me right. This story blows my mind. Okay. And it speaks to how petty the Murdochs, who own Fox News, Rupert and his sons, James and Lachlan, how petty those three men are being about all this. So this is an article from Axios. Take a look at this. Fox News Wednesday notified Tucker Carlson's lawyers that the former primetime anchor violated his contract with the network when he launched his own Twitter show on Tuesday, according to a copy of the letter obtained by Axios. Carlson's lawyers, well, I'll get to that in a minute. Shortly after Carlson posted the first episode of his new show on Twitter Tuesday evening, Fox News General Counsel Bernard Gugar sent a letter to Carlson's lawyers saying Carlson, quote, is in breach of his contractual arrangement. In connection with such breach and pursuant to the agreement, Fox expressly reserves all rights and remedies which are available to it at law or equity. The letter refers to Carlson's contract, which was originally signed November 8, 2019, and amended February 16, 2021. Quote, this evening, we were made aware of Mr. Carlson's appearance on Twitter in a video that lasted over 10 minutes. Pursuant to the terms of the agreement, Mr. Carlson's services shall be completely exclusive to Fox. It adds that Carlson's contract says he is, quote, prohibited from rendering services of any type whatsoever, whether over the internet, via streaming or similar distribution, or other digital distribution, whether now known or hereafter devised. Okay, let's get into this. I can't believe Fox is being this stupid. I can believe that they're being that petty, but I can't believe they're being that stupid. Because and again, I have not seen a copy of the letter. I'm just reading what I read in Axios. But the phrase Mr. Carlson's services shall be completely exclusive to Fox, and then you add the part about that he is prohibited from rendering services of any type whatsoever. With all due respect to the Murdoch family and the executives at Fox News, have you ever heard of the First Amendment? What I showed you earlier was from Tucker Carlson's own Twitter page. Not Fox News' Twitter page, not the Tucker Carlson Tonight on Fox News Twitter page. It's on Tucker Carlson's own Twitter page. That's his personal account. And if he makes a funny little logo that says Tucker on Twitter and decides to stick it in the bottom right-hand corner of a video that he posts, so what? So what? So what if he does? I mean, to me, and again, as I said at the very beginning, I am no lawyer, but it seems to me that the only way that Fox could demonstrably prove that Tucker is in violation of his contract is if Fox News could prove by evidence that there is a contractual arrangement between Twitter and Tucker Carlson. Short of that, this is just Tucker Carlson exercising his right to free speech. Because unless you can show that Twitter and or Elon Musk and Tucker Carlson have got some kind of arrangement, who cares what Tucker Carlson does? What does it matter to you guys at Fox? You're paying him anyway. You're paying him to not be on your network. What he does on his own time is entirely up to him. If Tucker Carlson decides to make a 10-minute video and post it on his own Twitter page, so what? What is that to you? The only way you can make the contract stick is if you can prove that Twitter and Tucker Carlson have something going on together. And if you can't prove that, I got a 2-word response. Shut up. Shut up. I mean, you guys look like grade A, 100% all-American made dog shit right now anyway. Shut up. Do yourself a favor. Your reputation is suffering horribly. Your ratings are suffering horribly. Sooner or later, your monetary intake is going to suffer because the advertisers are going to walk away from you because you can't get viewers on your network. So shut up. You've got bigger problems to worry about than whether Tucker Carlson posts a 10-minute video on his Twitter page. And by the way, talking about that whole breach of contract thing, may I respectfully point something out? Didn't you guys at Fox News violate your agreement with Tucker when you started doing certain things that were beyond the contract? Not that I'm trying to advocate on behalf of Tucker Carlson, but I think that's a fair question. I mean, seriously, did you guys not violate Tucker Carlson's contract? You told him that that you wouldn't settle with Dominion voting systems. You told him that if you did, he wouldn't look like the bad guy in all this. You started putting out, communication from Tucker Carlson, as part of, discovery with Dominion that makes him look like a schmuck. So really, who violated whose contract here? Just saying. So yeah, Tucker Carlson gets a 10-minute video posted on Twitter, gets over 112 million views. Fox News turns around and threatens to sue him if they haven't sued him already. So what does Tucker Carlson do? This is another reason why I love Tucker Carlson. Let me show you what he did. He basically flipped them the bird and posted a second video on his Twitter page. It doesn't quite have the same numbers as the first one, but daggone, look at this. 50 million views of this video. 23,000 comments, 133,000 retweets, 465,000 likes. Personally, I'm tickled to death for Tucker. And the thing is, the part that cracks me up the most, for Tucker Carlson, this isn't about the money. Really, it's not. It's not about Fox News' money. Tucker Carlson was independently wealthy before he ever stepped into Fox News. I'm not going to go into everything about it, but Tucker Carlson does not have to worry about money for the rest of his life. His wife doesn't have to worry about money for the rest of her life. The kids don't have to worry about money. He's fine. This isn't about money for Tucker Carlson. It's about free speech. It's about having an open dialogue. It's about having conversations. But for Fox, it's about money and contracts. Just kind of sad. Well, Tucker Carlson is not the only person in the news as far as like journalism is concerned. I don't know how much you may have heard about this, but the head of CNN, Chris Litch, let's say Litch, was removed this week. And I don't know whether to be sad or whether to laugh about it, to be perfectly honest. I really don't. I'll tell you why. This poor guy had one of the most unenviable jobs in the world as far as I'm personally concerned. Okay. There was a time when CNN was probably one of the best networks on television. You may not have agreed with them on everything, and you may not have liked some of their on-air personalities, but you could honestly say about them, they were about reporting the news. Now, it might be a little bit one-sided, but they were still a good news organization, in the opinion of a lot of people. And perfectly honest, I'm one of them. If I wanted to catch up on some facts about something, I'd turn on CNN News. They had good journalists. Real journalists, by the way. Not the partisan hacks they've got now. And then over the years, and particularly when Donald Trump came along, the quality of their work started going downhill. And when everybody in that newsroom got a case of Trump derangement syndrome, they really went off the deep end. To the point that Jeff Zucker, who used to be the CEO of CNN, got ousted. And David Zaslav, who's the head of Discovery Warner, of which CNN is owned by them, by the way. Zucker's out the door for various reasons, mostly some hanky-panky. Along comes Zaslav, and he puts Chris Licht in charge of CNN. And Licht starts doing some things that I think were in the best interest of the network. Number one, he started getting rid of some overpriced on-air talent that frankly was kind of dragging them down, and frankly was so far to the left, it was ridiculous. Say what you want to about Licht's, personal political feelings. He was starting to move the network back in a direction that actually was more middle of the road. Now, keep in mind, that's awfully far to the left they had gotten over to. So getting back to the middle of the road for them is most people say, well, they went from being communist to just liberal. Well, But then came the Trump town hall. And There were already long knives out for this guy, but that town hall definitely did not help him. So I want to show you an article from Politico. This is pretty interesting. At least I think so, anyway. Here's what the guy looked like. Oh, God, looks like a happy Opie. The real reason Chris Light got fired. Chris Light got canned Wednesday morning, truncating his chairmanship of CNN for a brief 13 months. The proximate catalyst for his departure was Tim Alberta's 15,000-word profile in The Atlantic inside the meltdown at CNN, which excavated Light's mistakes at the helm and his personal shortcomings as network boss. But it was more than that. To fully explain it, you need a team of the skills of National Transportation Safety Board investigators to sort and tag all the elements that led to Light's abrupt crash and then complete 456-page follow-up report 18 months later. I want to get a little further into this article. Leitch was regarded by CNN staff, rightly it appears, not as the independent chief of the network, but as the servant of Warner Brothers Discovery CEO David Zaslav. Alberta informs us Zaslav was in the habit of calling Leitch at 6:30 in the morning and interrupting his workouts. He was hired to do Zaslav's bidding and did exactly that. He removed the liberal patina his predecessor Jeff Zucker had painted on the network, and he made no effort to save the just-launched streaming channel CNN Plus, which Zaslav killed just days before he took over CNN. He laid off hundreds, including veteran journalist Brian Stelter. Now, that's insulting calling him a veteran journalist. And John Harwood. All these moves could be justified for business and maybe even editorial reasons. But inside CNN, the changes were perceived by some as a double rebuke. First, mandated by Lord Zaslav, but delivered by his DoorDash delivery boy, Leitch. Leitch assured Alberta in the piece from The Atlantic that Zaslav had his back, portraying their relationship as a partnership. But that wasn't so. As we climbed through the wreckage of Leitch's tenure, the most significant piece of evidence that Zaslav never had his back, he never even had Leitch's front. Zaslav admitted as much in his Wednesday morning comments to the staff when he said, quote, "It's really unfortunate, and ultimately that's on me, and I take full responsibility for it." Leitch's tumble from the top flows directly from that fact that Zaslav didn't have his back. Perhaps any executive assigned to do what Zaslav wanted would have ultimately paid the same price. As those who follow CNN media gossip know, Leitch became something of a pariah in the newsroom. Part of it was his own doing. He was distant from the operation, but part of it was his misfortune to be the guy who succeeded Zucker, who was as popular as a K-pop band in the newsroom. Zucker excels at charming and stroking his staff. That's a strange way of phrasing it. And charming and stroking the media reporters who cover CNN. Leitch would never be Zucker to these people. Not that he tried, but could anybody? Probably not. Okay, here's my take on the whole thing. You've heard the expression, "this is what happens when the inmates run the asylum." That's exactly what's going on here. Under Jeff Zucker, the on-air talent and other reporters at CNN had pretty wide sway, and Zucker is forced out of his own doing by his own hand. David Zaslav, as chairman of Discovery Warner, brings in Chris Leitch to run CNN. Now, there are no two people that run a news organization the exact same way. But Chris Leitch was the boss. Okay? He was making some moves that ultimately would have benefited CNN. My thought in the matter is this: if his reporters or his on-air talent had a problem with what Chris Leitch was doing, you could express it in private. And if you didn't like it, you could be a man or woman about it and leave. Trust me, these folks aren't going to have problems finding a job. But they didn't do that. Instead, they started sharpening the proverbial long knives to get this guy. And that's exactly what they did. That hit piece in The Atlantic was aimed expressly at getting Chris Leitch out as CNN CEO. Not a bit of doubt in my mind about it. They wanted him gone. They used that piece to do it. And frankly, now here's the bigger problem. Who do you put in? Who would want the job? Not with the pit of vipers you're going to be in there with. Seriously, I wouldn't want it. I don't think anybody else would. And to me, it's kind of a shame. I mean, like I said, I don't know Chris Light's politics. I think he's, from what I understand, he leans left or probably is a lefty. But at least he was trying to make some good changes at CNN to get them back on a decent footing from a standpoint of perception and from a standpoint of money. I mean, here you got a news organization which is in the tank consistently in its ratings. Can't get a daggone thing going. And now they forced him out. This is what happens when the inmates run the asylum. Nurse Ratched couldn't control anything anymore. And now CNN's flying over the cuckoo's nest. So there you go. So it's 12 noon on the East Coast. My name is Brian Trippett. I am your Front Porch Conservative. This is Front Porch Brunch, a little live stream dedicated to allowing you to catch up on the news and allowing me the opportunity to present it. And hopefully you're enjoying everything we're doing so far. One last thing, and we'll start wrapping this up. And I guess this falls under the category of HodgePodge. Just wanted to give a quick update on how bad things are going at poor old Bud Light. I say poor old. Yeah, well, they are old. They're not poor, but they're getting there. Quick little update on what's going on there. This is from a website called the drinksbusiness.com. Bud Light no longer America's top-selling beer. Constellation Brands has claimed Mexican lager Modelo Especial is now number one selling beer in the U.S., overtaking Bud Light. U.S. distributor says sales topped $333 million in the 4 weeks to May 28th, which is a 15.6 rise on last year across the same period. Bud Light sold $297 million, a 22.8% fall in May, according to figures obtained by Newsweek. All of their own doing. And it's gotten so bad. Now I'll show you this article real quick. This was last week in the this week in the Daily Mail. They have reached the point where it is altogether possible that come September, when stores and retailers start reevaluating what it is they need as far as shelf space, that the numbers on Bud Light are going to be so low that they're going to start reducing the amount of shelf space that Bud Light is given, and they'll give that shelf space to other brands, which is going to create a perpetual downward spiral. Now, do I think it's going to get there? I have no idea. Couldn't tell you. But it's bad. Bad to the point that merchandisers are losing about $2,000. Salespeople, okay, at distributors are losing about $2,000 a month, according to a report in the Daily Mail. You know, I posted a video last week just kind of with this same information in it, and one of the people who saw the video posted a comment, and I didn't get mad about it because he wasn't yelling at me, but I think he was just yelling in general. And he said, talking to me directly, he said, I don't get it, that an apology won't do any good at this point. I don't think it does. I agree with him. I don't think it's going to do a bit of good for Anheuser-Busch to apologize for this. It's past the point of apology, especially when you find out, no, yeah, that's right, I should have brought this video up, that Bud Light is hosting a Pride event out in Flagstaff, Arizona in the near future. You know, it just boggles the mind how silly these people are being. Just unbelievable. So it's about 12:05. I'm going to wind up wrapping up earlier than I thought I would, but this is Front Porch Brunch. For everybody who's been here this morning, thank you so much for stopping by. For Crash, for Ruben, and everybody else that's been watching. I genuinely appreciate it. Welsh and others. As far as things coming up in the near future, I'll go ahead and put some announcements out there now. On Tuesday of this week, I will be hosting a live stream where I'll be doing an interview with Jessica Fenske, aka Forest Mommy. She is a libertarian out of Colorado who is running for a local city council seat. And, one of these days I'm going to disconnect that wretched thing. The Siri is trying to talk to me. Cracks me up. Jessica Fenske, aka Forest Mommy, is going to be stopping by Tuesday, 7 p.m. Eastern, for a session of chatting on the porch. I'll be doing an interview with her. The following, not this coming Thursday, but the following Thursday, I'll be doing an interview with comedian Keanu C. Thompson out from New York City. Very interesting young lady. She's got a brand new YouTube live stream called Keanu Cast. She's a load of fun. Very funny young lady. I can't wait to get to an interview with her. We'll be posting videos throughout the week, so keep your eyes open. More than likely, we're going to have something on Tuesday related to the Trump indictment, or I should say the arraignment. So keep your eyes open for that. As always, thank you so much for being a part of this channel and its growth and its success. If it weren't for all you all out there who watch videos, who share them around, who spread the word, this thing wouldn't be growing the way it is. We're up to now a little under 370 subscribers to my YouTube channel. We're just under 50 on the Rumble side. So from the bottom of my heart, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. I could not believe that in the three and a half months now that we've been doing this, that it would come this far, this fast. So bottom of my heart, thank you very much. Again, Tuesday night, 7 p.m. Eastern, we'll be doing an interview with Jessica Fenske, aka Forest Mommy. Be putting some videos out this week. So again, thank you for stopping by. I genuinely appreciate it. This has been Front Porch Brunch. My name is Brian Trippett. I am your Front Porch Conservative. And as always, I leave you with the words of that American philosopher, Tom T. Hall. Just remember, it's faster horses, younger lovers, older whiskey, and more money. We'll see you.